Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Margot Smith. I'm the CEO of the RSL and Services Clubs Association. Welcome to today's webinar, Latest Developments in Gaming and Entertainment. Thought it would be helpful at the start of the session to rescope what we advertise this session as. So we talked about how we bring people into our venues and keep them there with a focus on product development and customer experience. So we won't necessarily delve into regulatory change or cashless technology. It really is designed to look at a tool to get people into the venue and keep them there. So we've got Rachel with us, George and Scott, and they'll each deliver a 10-minute presentation from their perspective on the latest in gaming and entertainment, and then we'll go into a panel discussion at the end. So hopefully you'll notice there's a chat function on your webinar panel or portal, and so if you have any questions, please pop them through and we'll either answer them within that session or hold them over to the end. But if you've got a specific question for a specific person, then please let us know. So without further ado, we'll kick off with Rachel. So Rachel will share a screen and tell us a little bit more about what's happening over at Ainsworth. Thanks, Rachel.
Perfect. Can you see my screen yet?
Yes.
There we go. Perfect. Well, hello, everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Rachel McHugh. I'm the Senior Product Manager over at Ainsworth. And so today I think we want to just kick off with talking a bit about what's actually happening, where are the gaming trends going, and what this means for your floors. So to be honest, not a whole lot's changed the last couple of years. Gaming has remained pretty much the same in terms of the mechanics that we're looking at, and it's just about how we're evolving those mechanics. So for everyone, it wouldn't be any surprise that hold and spin is still the #1 mechanic in the market. Players are not showing a shift from wanting to move away from this mechanic. Where they are showing a shift is the types of games that they are playing. So, you know, it's no surprise to anyone that there was a heavy dominance of 2 games in the market there for about 4 years, and that's all players were playing really when they were looking at hold and spin. But in the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen an emergence of every manufacturer developing their own hold and spin games. And for a little while there, they were getting very complicated. Everyone's, I think they thought their best bet was trying to throw everything at the game, whereas now they've taken a new approach. And how are we delivering that same simple mechanic, which is the whole reason people love hold and spin, and just evolving it to take it to the next level? So often you'll see that being a hold and spin with an additional feature on the end, hold and spin with multipliers or additional cash prizes coming through. And what we are seeing in the performance reports is we're now having a more diverse range of hold and spin games showing strong performance from every manufacturer. So it is a really good way to see the direction going within the industry and showing that players are wanting more variety in what they're playing, even though they do want that same mechanic coming through. That leads into variety is key to your gaming floors. So what we do see now in those performance reports is there is a big diverse range of games that are sitting in those top 25 reports. So this is a mixture of SAP versus Link. New South Wales in particular was very heavily a SAP market, if you're looking sort of 2015 and prior. Since then, we are seeing more and more Link games come to the market and show that strong performance. From a player's point of view, it's allowing them to win those bigger cash prizes and feel like more is going into the game. But also from an operator point of view, I think previously there was a real concern that Link games had this higher liability level for you because they have those bigger jackpots. When in reality, that jackpot's actually divided across often many more machines to bring it to a lower liability level than what a SAP game would. If you've got 4 SAP games sitting on a 20 grand versus 4 sitting with 5 grand SAP, you're actually probably going to be paying less in that 20 grand SAP in the long run, and meaning that players are feeling like they've got that higher chance to win. With links, though, there has been the big emergence of the 50K link in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. And when that first came out, I think the vast majority of people felt like they had to offer that 50K link because how else are they competing with the venue down the road? I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think that players are necessarily happier that they've won 50 grand over 20 grand, and when they win the 20, they're disappointed that they could have got a bigger jackpot down the road. They're happy that they won. And I think venues over installing 50 grand linked jackpots often means there's not enough turnover going into those games, because there's not enough games on the bank to support that higher jackpot level. So I think when it comes to your SAPs, your links, it's about having a wide variety of jackpot levels on your floor. There should be some link banks with those lower 10K values that players feel like they've got more chance of winning, especially if it is those more entertainer style games, versus your higher volatility levels. Maybe you are looking at those higher jackpots when you've got 8, 10, 12 games on those banks. Denomination structures, realistically, the vast majority of games now are player selectable multi-denom. But with that, it doesn't necessarily mean that every denomination is right for that product. So when we released Lucky Stars Deluxe earlier this year, that originally had a $1 denomination in the game. But that game is targeted at time on device, low volatility players who are there for particularly that daytime play session. So they're not necessarily the players that are looking to play the $1 denomination. And the game didn't play best at that denomination either. So we chose to remove it and just release it as a 1 to 10 cent game, because that suited the game better, but also it advertised to the players that it is an entertainment style game. And that's how we help target the correct player for the game. The biggest one's obviously volatility levels. There was a huge focus for a few years there of just trying to target the big punter, those that are playing the $1, $2 denom. They're sitting at that $5 to $10 max bet. And they are a very important player for a lot of venues. However, they're not the only player. And so it is important to have that variety of play style on your floor to make sure that people aren't just coming in and being burnt. You do have some players that come in multiple times a week and they want to be able to get 2, 3, 4 hours of play out of their money when they come in. And while it doesn't always seem the most enticing play to bring in, they're the ones that are going to be showing your venue loyalty most of the time. And we need to make sure that we are giving them an offering that suits their play session. So that is those lower volatility games like Lucky Stars Deluxe, or your mid-level games like Grand Fortune, where they feel like they're getting a longer extended play session and still having some wins along the way. And then you move into the higher volatility games like Oriental Gongs, which you've just released, which then targets that higher denomination player as well. Cabinet types. So for me, we're only doing dual screen. We do have the 2 different cabinet sizes, being the 27 and the 32-inch screens. But then obviously on a lot of floors, you also have the mix of the slant cabinets as well as the portrait cabinet as well. So I think for me, my biggest focus when I've looked at cabinets in the past is, what does the game require? If a game doesn't necessarily require to be on a portrait screen, is that going to give the player its best offering, or is it better to give them that dual screen offering for that type of game, and vice versa? And finally, feature mechanics. So as I said, hold and spin is still very important, but we are seeing the vast majority of games still having 2 features, having that mix of free games in there, as well as having a few different main hero feature mechanics on your floor as well, so that the players don't feel like they're always playing the same game. Persistence. So persistence is where I see the market heading over the next couple of years. We have obviously seen quite a few games come through in the last sort of 3 to 4 years, but it's going to happen more and more now that Queensland also allows persistence gaming. So for those that don't know what persistence is, you've probably heard it called other names as well, like waterfall and metamorphic. And it's just the idea that one spin can impact the next. So you might have a scatter on screen and it moves to a different position on your next spin. So it kind of goes against that original idea of games being independent for every single spin. So this is quite big overseas. And so it does mean that we can bring those mechanics into Australia. And I do believe that, yeah, over the next sort of 12 to 24 months, most likely every manufacturer will be developing some persistence games. They're not necessarily, I don't think, going to be the next big hold and spin, but I do think they'll provide a real amplified experience to some mechanics that we're already having in the market. Where we won't see come through is perceived persistence. So the idea that there's persistence within the game. So that might be a symbol on screen growing every time you collect coins. making you feel like it's going to pop or be awarded sooner, the bigger it grows. That is a very popular mechanic in the US and in Asia. And it was probably the most popular mechanic that we saw at G2E in Vegas. So that idea, we're not allowed to necessarily do here in Australia, whereas we can do direct persistence. So maybe changing some of those games that are in the US and developing them to suit this market's needs. The interesting thing is going to be, what does the regulator feel about this mechanic as it comes into the market more? So far, they have allowed it, but it's sort of just been dropped in by each manufacturer randomly, rather than being a big insurgence coming through. And I do know that people have had some issues. So that's something that we're all going to have to be on top of as we're developing our future games and roadmaps. And finally, I think everyone would agree the games that have been coming out the last 2 years are presenting better than ever before. And that is due to technology, but I think it's also due to every manufacturer realizing it is harder than ever to get players to sit down on your new games and to stay there. How are we attracting new players to sit down and play when, you know, another manufacturer's released a new game at the same time? And it's how that game presents. That's what draws you in. It's having sounds that link well to the game, that make the experience enjoyable rather than annoying, and having those animations that attract as players walk onto the floor. So that is going to be something that I think everyone is really focusing on. It's not just about the math. But what that means for you as an operator is, how can you help support that when these games hit your floor? And that's by having signage. It's by running topographics. It's by having infills and having that clean banking structure where you are banking machines from the same manufacturer together, and not having what I call the skyline structure on your floors. So by doing that, by drawing them in, you know, I'll say George and Light & Wonder did it fantastic when they released Dragon Train. Seeing how those games banked with the infills and the signs, there's no chance that a player is not walking onto your floor and thinking, I've never seen that before, I need to give it a go. And that's reflected in the performance and how high it launched at. And so that's where you can work with us to make sure that those new games are doing really well on your floor. So that's sort of where we're going in terms of mechanics going forward. Really briefly, I'll give you a bit of an insight into where we're heading at Ainsworth. So Oriental Gongs has just launched. It launched in New South Wales 2 weeks ago, and it's about to launch in Actually, it launched in Queensland today, sorry. And so this is your hold and spin game. But as I said before, it's providing that amplified experience. So if we look here, what you're doing is you're landing your normal hold and spin scatters, but what you're really looking for is your purple scatter, which changes your whole feature. So that's just a little insight into how the feature works. So it's all about, as I said, collecting your scatters, but how can we make that hold and spin feature more enjoyable, more exciting for the player? And it's saying to them, just because you landed this symbol doesn't mean that the prize is going to remain that for the remainder of the game. In addition, we've got instant wins in the base game. So rather than players solely trying to chase line wins to get them through to the feature, all they need to do is land an instant win scatter and then the trigger on reel 5 to be awarded that prize up to 200 times their bet, as well as their jackpots and bonuses. So just adding a little bit more excitement into the base games, which typically can run a little bit dry sometimes. And then 2 different free game mechanics across the 3 different games. So as I said, Oriental Gongs has rolled out in New South Wales. We're seeing exciting numbers come through, and as we go out to more venues, we'll begin to as well share some additional performance figures from those installs. And then Jackpot Kingdom. I think a lot of people would have seen Jackpot Kingdom on our stand at AGE. This really is, I guess, a little bit of the jewel in the crown that we've been working on all year. And it will roll out in January. So we'll get through the Christmas period, get everyone back to work and start installing Jackpot Kingdom throughout both Queensland and New South Wales. Where this game is really exciting is, as I said, the presentation for this For us, it has been all about refinement and the quality in the presentation that we're putting out. So the way the sounds work, the way that the game shakes and pulls you into the feature as you enter into the shake and break feature, and then the way the math plays out during that feature. So briefly. So what we've tried to do in Jackpot Kingdom is appeal to every player. So having different math pay tables from your 1 cent through to your $2 math means that each player is getting an experience that's more in line with their expectations. When they move into the shake and break feature, it's not about will I land a shield, it's how many shields will I land. And you'll see just little elements like after you land the shield and it breaks, we then highlight that coin to be blue. So it means that at the end of the feature, you're reminded just what you won throughout and what you started with versus what you've ended up with. Within it, we've got 3 different free game mechanics as well, each with their own volatility levels. So no longer is it this whole game family is this set volatility. It's within the family, players have those different options. So no longer do they come in and they're just, oh, I've already played Jackpot Kingdom. No, it's I played Rhino, I haven't played Elephant yet. Which one will be my preference? So we're trying to make sure that we can appeal to everyone through those mechanics as well. So that's where we're heading to for the end of the year. Beginning of next year, we'll be able to share our 2024 roadmap with everyone. There are some very exciting games to come through with that. But the best way to keep up to date with what we do have coming out is through our new client portal. So here you can log in, you can download all of the animations, art, graphics, and videos. And for me, you know, one of my passions in the industry has always been about educating everyone about our games. I truly believe that if gaming staff feel comfortable and are across how our games work, they do help promote it for us and they're able to link those games to players that like similar mechanics. So we do have 2 different types of videos. First of all, our showcase videos, which I've muted because they're me talking and no one needs to hear me talking twice within the same presentation. And these are for gaming managers and venue operators to just get a real in-depth insight into how our games work. And then in addition, we have our staff training videos. So these are just short videos that we run through how the features work. So it just means that your team feel comfortable when those installs go through on your floor, and they're always available 1 month prior to game release. So I think that sort of wraps everything up for me. And I'm sure I'll speak to a lot of you soon.
Thanks, Rachel. Some wonderful insights there, and really appreciate you taking us through some of the new products as well. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks. Now I'll hand over to George to tell us about what's been happening at Light and Wonder and take us through what's coming up.
Great, thanks. Thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here. I'll get hopefully everybody can see my slide deck there. So for those of you I haven't met, my name is George Pasmalidis. I'm the EGM Product Director here at Light and Wonder. So today, look, that was a great presentation by Rachel. I'm really probably reinforce a little bit of what she spoke about and maybe build it out with a couple more observations about what's happening in the marketplace. But I guess if we just kick it off, so look, I thought I'd start with talking about the product mix. So, you know, how has the market changed over the last 5 years? So here's a little bit of a presentation there. So as you can see, as reinforcing what Rachel said, Link has probably been the growing segment over the recent 5 years. So we started with going back about 5 years ago, Stanley Progressives. Going back about 5 years ago, Stanley Progressives made the majority of the market. That's been pretty consistent. Still around 60% of the install base in New South Wales. But what has declined is obviously the standalone legacy product, and we've seen that emergence of Link product in the marketplace, which these days makes up about 30% of the floor. So, you know, that's obviously we're seeing growth in that, and the focal point with manufacturers putting a lot more emphasis into that Link space, and obviously a very competitive segment. And Rachel had some really acute observations there about Link, so I'll touch on those as well. But as well as that, we're looking at the top performing game mechanics. So quite rightly, Rachel spoke about hold and spin. That still is the predominant mechanic out in the marketplace, and it's been a challenge for all manufacturers to really innovate in that space and capture a lot of the player attention there. So, but just a summary there, looking at what the top performing games in the marketplace, when you look at new game releases over the last 12 to 18 months, the majority still are hold and spin, or predominantly based on a hold and spin mechanic. In addition to that, Rachel spoke about persistence. It is an emerging segment, and we'd like one to have particularly made an effort to really lead that. And we had a product a couple of years ago called Kraken Unleashed. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that, which introduced an innovative persistence element to the hold and spin scatters. And we've continued that with the launch of Dragon Unleashed, which has been a very successful product for us in the marketplace over the last year. And we'll continue to focus on that, as will other manufacturers. And Rachel said, there's different rules that apply to persistence. There's different ways it can be implemented. Some ways, as Rachel explained, perceived persistence, that really by and large is being eliminated in the marketplace. But nonetheless, quite rightly, you will see manufacturers still keep a focus on this. And we believe this is an important segment. It's a key battleground and will continue to grow. And the last one there is something called triple feature. You may have heard it called triple pots, triple features, but essentially this describes a category of games that have multiple features on offer. Generally, they're presented as pots or symbols in the top box of the machine, and the player can trigger one of those. I'll talk a bit more about that category, but again, our view, and I think largely Rachel agrees with this, is they're the main categories. They'll be the focus point. And like all manufacturers, our forthcoming portfolio is largely based on that. So majority of our games, half of our portfolios still continues to be hold and spin, a large emphasis for us on persistence, triple feature, and obviously you always have to leave a little bit of space there to innovate and introduce new concepts. But the important thing here is that not one of these mechanics necessarily lives on its own. So a lot of games will be a combination of. So in our case, Dragon Unleashed, it's a hold and spin, but we like to focus on the persistence element. So I might just flesh that a bit more in the next slide. So, all right, hold and spin, what's new? Rachel spoke about some of the new products there from Ainsworth. Our new product in the marketplace is something called Dragon Train. No doubt most of you have heard about it now. We launched it at AGE. It started off with a bang, getting a lot of performance, great momentum out of this. But obviously the hold and spin category continues to drive floor performance and revenue for most clubs. Look, it's an internationally recognised mechanic model. It's great all around the world. You've got to realise this was introduced 8 years ago. Obviously, Aristocrat launched it. And you think about particularly a lot of your younger players who've only started playing in the last 8 years, they've really become conditioned to the experience you get from hold and spin. So I do think it's going to be around for a few more years. This is always a challenge. How long is it going to be around? And, all the competitors are always vying to sort of come up with the next, better mechanic. But I think, hold and spin will continue to be around. And as Rachel said, it's really about innovating in this segment. And this will still be the dominant segment for the foreseeable future. But I guess from our perspective, how do you improve on hold and spin? Well, we've added more hold and spin to the hold and spin feature. So Dragon Train is a great example. Basically, it starts off with initiating a hold and spin feature. Very familiar. The key with good hold and spin games is giving players an experience they expect and like. You don't want to deviate too much from that. But the real excitement is in what is the new element that you can add that really keeps players engaged. We often hear players get, they're sick of hold and spin. But the reality is they will go and try other things, but they always come back. So there's something innate about hold spin mechanics in this market. Players do love them. And the challenge is how you make it more interesting, more exciting, and get them to perform better in your venue. So Dragon Train, we've recently released this. There's 4 games in the series. It's currently as a link. We're just about to release the standalone progressive version. And certainly, if you haven't heard about it by now, reach out to your Light & Wonder account manager, and they can tell you all about it. So the second category we touched on was persistence. Now, as Rachel said, she gave a good example there. I kind of describe it when a state or event happens in one spin that persists into the next. And there's lots of little different ways you can do it, and we like one to do it in different ways, some subtle, some very overt. But most common examples are when you have a symbol from one spin that continues into the next. What is really good about when persistence is done well, what it really does is it really heightens anticipation. I think it plays on that near miss element, So in this example that I've got on the screen here, and I don't have videos, I can't talk and press too many buttons at once, but in this example, it's a sort of hold and spin style game. Players looking for the 6 scattered symbols, but when they land a couple, as in the image on the left, in the next spin, they don't just spin away and then you've got to get 6 again. What happens is they cascade down and they'll continue. And you get that sort of cascading effect. It's a really neat effect. It does add a lot of anticipation, excitement to the game. And it just always gives that player a little bit of feeling that, oh, I'm close. So we had success with Kraken Unleashed. Many of you may know of that product. We launched a couple of years ago, more recently Dragon Unleashed. And we will be following that up shortly with a portrait product called Kraken Unleashed. So it's a mechanic we're really going to focus on. And as you heard, you should see more of this across all the manufacturers in the future. And I'll also throw one more in. Oops, I'll go back a page. The triple pot mechanic I spoke about a little bit earlier. So essentially, this is having multiple features in the top box. What's nice about this is players can trigger multiple features, so adds to the excitement. You can have a variety of features, so it makes the game a little more interesting and engaging. But again, I think when done well, the effect is you can have lots of anticipation, and a lot of these triple pot or triple feature games are really built on random triggers. So you can trigger any of these multiple features randomly, and you just never know. So there's always that heightened anticipation. And generally, I think a lot of them, particularly good ones, will have a high feature hit rate. So you have a lot of features, and part of that is that the players can actually trigger those quite frequently. And again, this triple pot is not necessarily a mechanic that exists on its own. Often it's used in combination with hold and spin or persistence features. So in our case, we've got a couple of really strong products in the marketplace. Thunder Drums we launched at AGE last year continues to be a very strong product. It's Link and Sap, gives players the opportunity to win one of 3 features in the top box, as well as a repeat win free game feature. It's very engaging. It's what's really nice about it. It's a little bit of a contrast to the hold and spin stuff. There's a lot of that out there. So, but players obviously are looking for something a little alternative with a lot of excitement and high feature hit rate. And more recently, a couple more fun style games, Goldfish. We've got a couple of those out in the marketplace. They've been, they've got more an entertainment bent, a lot of activity, very boisterous, a lot of fun. But again, nonetheless, they give players the option to win one of 3 features individually or in combination. It adds to a lot of sort of excitement and fun. So they're the 3 mechanics that, as we said, we certainly at Light One will continue to focus on. There's 3 sort of core products that we're putting in the marketplace at the moment, and our roadmap next year will continue to build on these mechanics and these particular brands. So how does that translate sort of into an international perspective? If any of you went to G2E, you would have made some of these observations. So there's a lot of manufacturers displaying there. There still seems to be, yes, a very strong focus on hold and spin. Triple pot mechanics that I just spoke about, there's a lot of product there, a focus from a lot of manufacturers on that, and persistence features, which we've spoken about. So fairly prolific across all suppliers. Some suppliers obviously have particular leadership in some of those categories, and a lot of the smaller emerging international suppliers are certainly starting to focus on those mechanics. So I dare say us here in Australia will continue to see these for at least the next 2 years. Large focus on digital crossover of content, and that's something that Light & Wonder is particularly focused on. If you've heard the Light & Wonder story, we've gotten rid of our sports betting and lottery businesses, and our focus is on becoming, the primary cross-platform gaming content supplier internationally. And again, what you'll see is this will be an emerging trend where manufacturers will be launching product, closely aligned or simultaneously across land-based gaming. That's bricks and mortar venues like yourselves, social gaming, and iGaming, or play for real money style casino gaming online. And the importance of that is it's it could be misinterpreted that could be potentially take customers out of the venue, but that's not really the goal here. The goal is to get customers into your venue, and you can do that by introducing new concepts, testing them on social gaming, seeing how players react to them, and then the goal will be to then get those players to actually come and find that game and play it in your venue. So that's kind of the strategy for a lot of the major manufacturers, and I think that's where you'll see it to continue to go. And what it also does, it gives manufacturers the option to test, A/B test games, so they can test them in online situations and really then take learnings out of that and improve them and perfect them before we get them into your actual machines on your gaming floor. So obviously an emerging space, technology driven, and we'll hear a lot more about that over the coming years. Look, LED signage, particularly integrated with slot product. Again, G2E, very prominent product. Look, this looks great. I dare say you'll see some of that here locally. Some of the manufacturers will test it. Casino environments are ideal. Ultimately, in a club environment, obviously it becomes a very expensive product, and particularly when you try and build a roadmap for it. So it's a great idea. It looks good. You will see it here, but it's just something interesting there that you may see coming out over the next couple of years. And Rachel spoke about, I think, one of their large portrait screens. And again, that's a bit of a trend, particularly overseas. Still a big focus on large format. We've got our own Cascada 43-inch, K43 product here in the marketplace, and we've got some new games coming out that all largely built on those key categories that I spoke about. And I also want to throw in multi-terminal gaming. So again, this is an important segment. We spoke about offering your players variety, giving them reasons to come to your venue. And again, for most of us in this forum, I guess there's an eye on pubs and how we can compete against pubs. Multi-terminal gaming is another great option for many venues to diversify their floor and just expand that offering. So if you don't know, you can have up to 15% of your EGM entitlements can be made up of multi-terminal gaming. You can install it with a minimum of 3 terminals. So if you're a smaller venue or have a smaller sort of market opportunity for this, 3 terminals, but we can actually support up to 6 games on each individual terminal. So it's a $100 max bet. And it is a growing segment, particularly a lot of regional areas and regional clubs are starting to sort of get in on this. But again, something to have a think about if you don't have this in your venue. And we're also introducing some really new, exciting new games that I've got there on screen. Roulette X is sort of essentially a sort of a spin on roulette, which offers a jackpot. Players can win up to 500 times multiply. It's quite exciting. Really designed to cater to sort of a younger market. But again, it's just an opportunity to offer your players sort of casino-style games, something that your pub competitors can't have. And certainly for many of you, if you're away from the casino, away from Sydney, away from the casino, it's a great opportunity to give your locals an opportunity to play some of these sort of casino-style games. So, and lastly, a little bit of a preemptive thing. We might get some questions about cashless gaming. So just what's happening in the marketplace. So ourselves, I know IGT and Aristocrat have been doing some sandbox trials over the last year. We've all partnered with an operator each. So this is all about testing new technologies, trying to monitor, just trying to sort of test player behaviours, how they react to it, how they interact with cashless gaming options, and then trying to figure out what the best operational implementations are. And it's also an opportunity to test things like digital wallets. So, this is more about the transaction. How do you get players to sort of, nobody really carries cash, or ultimately we're going to do away with cash. It's about how we can get them to sort of move cash onto the gaming machine. So that's primarily what a lot of these trials over the last couple of years have been about. But obviously, more recent times with the new government introduced the 12-month cashless gaming trials. As you guys know, there's a panel's been appointed, and that's going to be all about developing recommendations for the government. Look, in reality, there's a lot to happen, a lot to go. There'll be some recommendations, there'll be sort of reviews. eventually legislation get drafted, and then all that will have to be implemented. So in reality, when is that going to happen? I don't really see anything actually happening before perhaps late 25 going into 26, but nonetheless, we all know it's there, and it's obviously increasing focus, particularly with an emphasis on AML and harm minimisation. So it is what it is, but we'll watch this space, and there's still a lot of work to be done. But nonetheless, the journey has begun, I guess, so to speak. So that pretty much wraps it up for me. And I guess we'll take some questions down the track. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, George. That's a wonderful summary. Okay, so now we'll crack on with Scott, who'll tell us a little bit about what's happening at Keno and what to expect. So over to you, Scott. I'd love to hear some more what's coming up.
Thanks very much, Margo. Let me just share my screen here. One second, sorry, guys.
All right.
Let me know when you can see that.
Yep, all good.
Fantastic. So, guys, I head up the marketing function at the Lottery Corporation for both Keno and Instant Scratchets. So I've got the opportunity to come at this conversation from a slightly different angle, I suppose. We have the luxury of probably having less restrictions around our advertising and our marketing activities, both outside of a venue and inside of a venue. So what I was going to talk to you today is about the Keno context itself, the role that Keno plays in venue visitation, how the clubs channel is performing relative to hotels, the role of my team as a brand and marketing team, and the role of your team in successfully delivering a positive Keno experience and triggering a Keno occasion to customers when they visit your venues. And then touch on some of the bigger challenges that we are facing in the Keno space, as well as some of the initiatives we've undertaken to sort of overcome them. So, look, I expect you guys are a fairly well-educated audience. From a Keno perspective, we run the East Coast Keno game as well as the game in South Australia. We've been in New South Wales for over 30 years. We have around 1,700 outlets, of which about 800 are clubs, of which about 137 of those are RSL clubs. I think it's really important to acknowledge that we're in a highly competitive environment, whether it's entertainment, gambling-led entertainment. We're not just competing with the venue down the road or even the hotel category. We're competing with every other instance of a product or a brand or a service trying to take share of wallet out of our customers' regular routines. So, pop-up restaurants, food trucks, gym memberships, all of that kind of stuff impacts how much money players have at the end of the day to come to their local clubs and venues and how much they can spend when they're there. I think we're really, really fortunate, especially in the clubs industry, in that we have strong loyalty and patronage alongside a lot of the social benefits of attending a local club. And what we see in that club space is regular habitual behaviours and frequencies from large player bases and audiences. The role of Keno, as I see it in the RSL club visit, we typically don't consider ourselves to be driving venue visitation. People visit their local club to catch up with friends, have a meal, watch the footy, have a gaming experience. And what we know is that while they're there, they play Keno alongside some of these other activities. I talked a little bit about habitual behaviours. So in a lot of the customer research we've done, we know that customers will often frequent on the same days of the week or the same nights. When they leave home, they drive the same way to their local club. If it's a big club, they'll enter by the same part of the car park. They'll park in and around the same spot, and they'll take the same pathway into the venue itself. This is particularly good for us, I suppose, because some of those more loyal customers have these habitual behaviours that see them putting a game of Keno or a number of games of Keno on when they arrive before going into the gaming room and then checking the Keno at the end of the gaming session. They also tell us that Keno is the perfect product for a gaming break. It's extremely good value at $1 a game, and $10 will buy you half an hour. And we feel and understand from that customer as well that it really does extend dwell time of their visit, and the wins that they pick up along the way, they reinvest back into the venue, whether it's buying the next round of drinks or buying some food. Just on the right there, I've got some brand associations. The point here is that, the three call-outs are that it makes the social occasion more exciting. It does come up as a very social form of gaming. It's great to play with friends, but it's also a great game for people to play on their own. So in venue, it really does appeal to a very wide audience of people that are there for a whole bunch of different reasons. Sorry if this is a little bit small, but I've taken New South Wales club performance for Keno year to date and compared it against hotels for you. And the positive thing here for clubs is that the venue channel is outperforming hotels across all of the products within our portfolio, being volume drivers, so 6-spot and below, jackpot drivers being the pool jackpot games, as well as heads or tails. I've just these numbers in green, they're not they're relative to the hotel channel, not relative to last year, and I've just highlighted them there so you can sort of see where the clubs are overperforming. I think the two reasons behind this is the value proposition that the RSL clubs offer to customers, whether it's slightly cheaper food and drink or a more affordable F&B experience, as well as I think the demographic factors with regards to the baby boomer audience, and everything I read at the moment continues to reinforce the fact that this audience is in fact spending more year on year than anybody else, and that these cost of living pressures, these interest rate rises really aren't impacting the disposable income of this audience. And I think that that's serving really well to the club's channel itself. I'll keep moving because I've got quite a few slides here. The role of my team, as I see it, is outside of a venue to prime audiences prior to the venue visit that they have with you guys. And the two ways I do that is by building brand campaigns that we communicate in media above the line, as well as running major promotions. So you're probably aware that this week we launched $1 million cash giveaway in New South Wales. It's an instant win mechanic where anyone playing $10 or more on Keno, when they check their ticket, could win a share of $1 million in cash over the next 4 weeks. Inside of a venue, what my team does is once we want to ensure that you guys have everything you need to create a strong visual link with what they're seeing outside of a venue and then what's happening inside of a venue. And the way we do that is by providing you guys marketing materials to put up on your electronic point of sale that correlate with the stuff that we're doing in a marketing space, giving you tiles for your member communications, and letting you plan your own activities and promotions around your own gaming and marketing calendars. And we do that through the local area marketing portal that is offered through our Keno Connect platform. What I see the role of venues in good Keno performance and good customer experience is making sure that Keno Vision is available for everyone everywhere. Big format vision in large open spaces, vision in gaming, bistro, smoking areas. Again, we know when people are taking a break off the gaming machines or going out to have a cigarette, they quite often like to have a few games of Keno on at the same time. And of course, now in New South Wales, we can offer the actual ball draw on the Keno app as well. So people, despite not being able to see a screen if they're sitting in a particular part of the venue, can actually engage with the game itself. Pathway to purchase and good signage is absolutely key, making sure that people know where the terminal locations are. Best practice would be having terminals in both gaming and non-gaming areas. And then, like I said, the venue ad marketing program around the toolkit promotions, which allow you guys to customize the prizes that you offer to the audiences that you want to serve. So there's a couple of examples here. These are all pre-approved promotions. The artwork gets generated through AI. The terms and conditions are all there. They're done for you. You can slot these into your own marketing plans wherever you like. If you're a venue that has that is on the coast, there are products and prizes around fishing that you can drop in. If you want to appeal to an older demographic or a younger demographic using technology, you can go the Nintendo Switch type prizes as well. Our challenges are getting noticed. I think the media fragmentation has been supreme over the last 5 to 10 years. Once upon a time, you just buy TV, radio, and put some ads in the local newspaper. Now there's hundreds, thousands of different ways to get your message to audiences, and with that comes the need to produce a whole heap of marketing assets. So there are some definite challenges there for us. And one of the key ones is the barrier that still exists for Keno between the physical game in retail and the restrictions that are put on us through different legislations across the country with the digital game itself. And as such, we really don't know who our players are. There is an enormous base of anonymous players that we are unable to market to directly or personalise the experience for. How we're overcoming some of that, you may be aware we're running, a second chance draw mechanic that encourages people to enter their tickets. That's designed to build up a one-to-one database of retail customers so that eventually down the track we can work with your industry bodies and your club managers, gaming managers to CRM and send messages out to that audience database specific with offers in your venue itself. And we've been undertaking a bunch of different pilots, I guess, across different states, including the digitisation of retail features as well as some omni-channel and cashless activities. I'll touch on a couple of those activities in a bit more detail now. So digitally enhanced retail play is a feature for New South Wales specifically. It was launched in 2022. We've secured, well, the way it works is that you buy a ticket through the operator, you scan that ticket using the Keno app, and it digitises that ticket into the Keno app. So you can watch in real time as your numbers match the ball draw. I guess in the same way that a gaming machine plays, there's haptic sounds, there's near win messages and things that come out. It really improves the engagement with the games that people are playing. We know from research that, if people put 10 games on, they might watch the first couple and then lose track. And what the app does is it allows us to send push notifications attached to that game for all the different wins that they're having. We've generated over 28,000 individual account signups, which, like I said, is now an audience that we can talk to when we have new product launches and new things that we want to communicate. And we have about 10% of our retail turnover being digitised into the app in New South Wales each week. George talked a little bit about cashless. We do firmly believe that, that these payment technologies have come on massively since COVID. People don't carry a lot of cash these days, and I've been quite surprised at how Keno turnover has held up without having a cashless payment option. I think that talks a lot to the complement that the Keno product plays to a gaming occasion and the fact that you need cash in that environment as well. But we have been undertaking a trial in Queensland with 74 venues whereby customers can pay for their Keno tickets using their debit and credit, their debit cards and their mobile phone wallet devices. The uptake has been impressive and building over time, and the longer term view is to have this rolled out into New South Wales at the end of this financial year. And lastly, the environment in Victoria is very different. There is a digital license that has been approved in Victoria, which means that customers can play Keno both in a venue and outside of a venue using the mobile app, so a full omni-channel experience. And what we're seeing by way of behaviours at the moment is that customers still like to play using physical tickets when they're in venue, but that customer also likes to play Keno in moments outside of that venue, whether it's waiting in the car to pick somebody up, whether it's sitting on the couch at home. And the beauty of the model that we've worked with the industry in Victoria on is the shared commission model. So if we activate the sales force within a venue to sign up a customer and have them place a bet within that venue, they become an aligned customer to that venue for the next 12 months. And any turnover that happens outside of the venue gets 50% commission on that turnover. We have venues in Victoria at the moment making in excess of a couple of $1,000s a week in out of venue aligned commission attached to customers that are playing Keno outside of that environment. And then lastly, what we're doing to provide venues with perhaps a lower cost to serve model off the back of that digital functionality is that we've done a Victorian pilot where we don't have any of the typical Keno infrastructure, so no terminals. And what we're doing is asking people to play on their app with some vision, that significantly reduces the cost to serve. It's only been in market a couple of weeks now, so I don't have too many results for you. But that's probably brings us to the end of what's been happening in the Keno space, and happy to take any questions as part of the Q&A.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, really great insights and interesting R&D happening. I did have a question before that last slide. When will Keno be available or will be able to purchase through POS terminals? I guess with the Vic trial, any knowledge on timelines and hows and everything?
I assume by POS terminals, the question is about the integration of our Keno terminal into a point of sale system. We are working on a core business platform refresh at the moment. I don't believe it is scoped to be integrated with a POS system as much as it is a new, more modern version of a standalone system itself. So sorry to disappoint, but I don't think that's on the roadmap.
And that last Victorian trial, the option with the point of sale that was purely digital?
Yeah, we have to have a fully functional digital playing experience in order to offer that. Which we're currently not legislated to have in New South Wales. We are continuing discussions with the New South Wales regulator about what an online product might look like, and how that going into that market might impact people's ability or desire to play in retail. We understand that retail turnover is a very important part of our business, and I think George alluded to it before. We don't want people playing outside of a venue and then not coming to a venue to have that experience. So we're watching the Victorian market very closely at the moment with respect to the benefits that it's delivering both our business and our key industry partnerships and stakeholders as well. So it's a difficult one.
No problem, thanks. So if anyone else has any questions, pop them in the question and answer section. So some interesting discussions there, initially about variety, volatility, and also looking at some of the activation and promotions. I think particularly, your comments, Scott, about some of those baby boomers might be less affected by cost of living, which probably makes the variety of machines and the volatility of machines all the more important, as well as harm minimisation considerations, etc. So I think that only further enhances the need for variety on floor. So some really interesting points there. Any other promotions or activations, perhaps at Light & Wonder and Ainsworth, that have worked well? Any examples?
So for us, it's not so much about an activation, but it does, I guess, enhance the launch of a product. So one thing that we're running now is through a display controller, we're able to now run almost like signage animation through our toppers. So when you install, the number of machines on the bank then has graphics that link up to that number. So rather than a venue having to necessarily buy and install signage, we're almost running a very similar graphic across the actual toppers of the machines, which particularly for our new A-Star 100 cabinet, which has those 32-inch toppers, can have pretty much the same impact as signage. Obviously, signage is very expensive, so it's not something you can have on every bank in every venue, but it does just help give that extra level of attract, particularly for new banks. I think the big thing is when a player walks into a venue, the question is that a new game, or is that just not one that I've seen before? So obviously we want them to always know that it's a new game. And by providing that, it's just a simple way for venues to help launch their new products.
What do you think some improvements could be made in clubs on the gaming room floor, whether or not it's products, promotions or place, that would enhance the experience, effectiveness, given that you go around a lot of venues, whether or not they're clubs, pubs, casinos? Question to anyone.
I'll jump in. Well, look, I guess one thing that is a topic is a common topic is jackpots. We touched on a bit earlier about that, and how clubs respond to that. Often it's a reaction to the guy down the road or the pub down the road has got 50 grand. How do I react to that? So what I'd say in that regard is most good products will have multiple jackpot options, whether they're standalone progressives or jackpot links. Really, you should talk to your account rep there and look at the options, but dig a bit deeper into look at things like turnover to hit, like how often does the jackpot go off? What is the increment? It's really about optimizing the experience for your venue and your players. So it's yes, people like to see big headline value, 50,000, 40,000, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, there's no point having one of those prizes there if it's just sitting there for 2 years, not going off. So one piece of advice, how you might improve, particularly when you're looking at jackpot configurations and how you can position your venue to compete against particularly your competing venues, is just think a little bit deeper about that. What are the size of your jackpots? And Rachel touched on about liabilities. Yes, we acknowledge a lot of particularly smaller venues might be concerned about that, but it doesn't mean to say you have to have a big jackpot. It's about think about frequency. What little tweaks can I have? Some products will have lots of different options in them, and your account manager can sort of coach you through them. We have a configurator. You can model up what's my expected turnover for those machines, and then you can sort of try and optimize that. But certainly one thing I'd suggest is don't just default to the lowest. Think a little more about how you position products and your venue, and particularly what the competitive environment is you're in, and ask a lot of questions from your reps. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add on to that is exactly what George was saying. Get more info out of your reps, not just about how the game works. It's what player type is it targeting? What's our goal of the game? Because then that helps with your product placement on the floor. It makes sense to be grouping game styles based on that player, because realistically, a lot of players are creatures of habit. They go to that same section on your floor. So how can we attract them to play on the other games? It's by grouping them together. And so we have that information. I think it's not always the first thing that's, handed out just because there's so many things to go through. But always that's what we're here for, is to provide you with that more in-depth information of the game so that you can place them, with their best position on your floor.
Yeah, and that's a real good point too. Again, if I can add on, is doesn't matter what the game actually does on the screen. It's the experience. There's high volatility, low volatility. What does that mean? What's the experience? What's the outcome? There are games that have high feature hit rates, something going on, but doesn't necessarily mean the features are, that rewarding. Like there's a whole lot of elements. We spoke about variety, so ask a lot of questions, try and understand where is the best positioning for that product in my floor, and what type of player am I really trying to cater to with that?
Thanks, George. Thanks, Rachel. Scott, I have another question for you. Why is integration into commercial POS systems not being considered? Seems an obvious way to make Keno transactions more seamless and less separate from anything else in clubs.
Well, I'm going to have to take that on notice. I'm afraid I'm not a tech guy, and I'm not involved in the scoping documents per se. I suspect it might have a lot to do with regulatory back ends, and the way that they've evolved or created that tech stack to attach to regulated equipment around the random number servers versus a method in which just to sell the bets, so to speak. But I might have to get a better response for you on that, Margo.
That's okay. So for the person that sent it through, it was anonymous. So maybe just pop me an email, and I can have that question answered via Scott.
I do appreciate that having a second terminal in venues that have limited space can create challenges. And so in an ideal world, I think they talk overseas a lot in the lottery market about in-lane. They talk about Walmart delivering a lottery ticket purchase, again, using their own POS terminals, but that's not something that they've been able to overcome internationally yet either. So it's also a conversation that happens in the lottery category. It's not unique, but I can get a better response for you.
No worries. The person has reached out, so I'll if you can find out, let me know and I'll let them know. Wonderful. Okay, well, we don't have any more questions. Thank you all so much. Really dynamic discussion, really good sense of where the market's at, what to expect for some new products, what's happening in the R&D space. And I thank you all so much. Really appreciate the time you took and everyone for participating. For anyone who'd like to have a look at the recording, it will be sent out tomorrow, I believe. So keep an eye out for an email. We actually had about 100 people registered, so a few didn't log in today, so they'll see the recording as well. Couple of reminders. Also, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Forum is on the 23rd of November at Club Parramatta. The buzz in the room after that one last year was absolutely amazing, so please register. We'd love to see you all there. We've got a regional forum at Kirribilli on the 9th of November at 10 a.m. So please register for that one. A regional forum at Cowra on the 14th of November at 3 p.m. Also register. More webinars and forums coming up as well. So thanks for joining us. Thank you to Scott, George and Rachel. Really appreciate you taking the time.